All right, everybody, welcome to Slam, the podcast that reviews the history of DC superheroes. I'm your co-host, Mike Howell, and I'm joined by
Joshua Mervell, and today we're going to be taking a look at the many origins of Batman.
That's right. And I know that everyone's been waiting, but you'd think that maybe we do Batman in the first or second episode, but we have to go in chronological order in which they were introduced, these DC superheroes. And it really drives home the point that, I already knew that Crimson Avenger had appeared first, but to be honest, I was surprised that Sandman had appeared before Batman. Mm-hmm. But again, we're still kind of transitioning out of the old pulp heroes into the standard superheroes. So in this case, we have a character with no superpowers, but with a costume that more closely resembled Superman's costume. And all of this stuff has been discussed before, but to give a very quick rundown, when I was a kid growing up in the 80s, the only person that was credited with creating Batman was Bob Kane. But there was always these kind of rumors that Bill Finger actually deserved more credit than he actually got, and Bill Finger was the writer for many years, actually decades, but he never got credit as a creator. And then finally, within the last 5 to 10 years, Bill Finger's been given official recognition as a creator. But the story is that Bob Kane only created the name, and he created a version of a costume which was red with, I think, brown wings and a domino mask. And
interesting.
Everything else came from Bill Finger. The blue and gray costume with the utility belt, the purple gloves, the Batman ears, the cape with the what do they call it on the bat?
It's like the arch. I don't even know what that would be called. Like
whatever that's called.
Yeah.
Bill Finger came up with the identity Bruce Wayne. He came up with everything. He wrote all the first stories. So now he's credited. Now it's Batman created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger. But really, it should be and. If not, Bill Finger should possibly be first. But that's another debate. But yeah. So anyway, the Detective 27 was Batman's first appearance, but his origin was not revealed until Detective number 33, which was in November of the same year. And that's what we're going to start off our episode with. We're going to be comparing 3 different origins of Batman.
Right.
And this is the first one. And it's very brief, just like the Superman reviews that we did a few episodes ago. This is only a 2-page origin. So we're going to go into more detail than we usually would. But we can almost go panel by panel. But basically... Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, it's that quick that we could pretty much describe the whole thing.
Right. So this story, it's funny because this is a story within a story. So the actual splash page shows Batman and this giant, it looks like a metal Zeppelin.
Yeah.
The title of the story is The Batman Wars Against the Dirigible of Doom. But before that story starts, we just jump into this origin of Batman, legend, the Batman, and how he came to be. And I'm not going to read every word here, but basically I'm going to highlight the details that are the same and that are different, like the famous details. Like, for example, their names are the same. We see Batman's parents, Thomas Wayne. Oh, his wife is unnamed. Thomas Wayne and his wife, because back then women were not as important, as we know.
Of course.
And so his wife was not named, but they were walking home from a movie, which is a detail that is kept in most versions of Batman's origin. They're coming up from a movie, they're in an alley. Right? I mean, in the Batman Begins, it was a play, I believe, right? But in most versions, it's a movie. So they come across someone. Thomas Wayne says, "What is this?" This robber, burglar, mugger says, "A stick it, buddy. I'll take that necklace you're wearing, lady." Then Thomas Wayne tries to stop him. "Leave her alone, you owe." The person shoots. "You asked for it." Then his wife says, "Thomas, you've killed him. Help, please help." Then the killer shoots again.
Shoots her.
This will shut you up. Now, this is a detail that gets changed later, but it's important. Yeah, which I prefer this version, that they're both shot, but we'll talk about that later.
100%.
Yeah, 100% better.
Yeah.
So they're dead. And the narration...
And you do actually see both of them on the next panel.
Dead.
Dead on the ground, which is... seems like it kind of a lot for the first origin. I wouldn't expect to.
It's pretty graphic,
fully see their face.
Right.
I think pretty graphic for the time, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, the audience, was it kids? Not really. It was more, well, I mean, younger readers, but also the same audience as a pulp reader, right? Like, maybe not the most literate audience, but everyone was reading these things back then. So, yeah. And it was kind of there wasn't, again, the 1930s, I believe it was before censorship began in Hollywood. So things were a little bit different back then. So anyway, Bruce Wayne's reaction is also important here. So he looks down, father, mother, and then he's got tears in his eyes, and he says, "Dead, they're dead." And then he's praying by candlelight on his bed, and he says, "And I swear by the spirits of my parents to avenge their deaths by spending the rest of my life warring on all criminals." So there we go. There's his vow. Then we see a scene. This is key. I really love this. As the years pass, Bruce Wayne prepares himself for his career, becoming a master scientist, which is a detail that is sometimes left out of his origin. But I think it's pretty cool to see that, right? Yeah. Almost like a Doc Savage type thing.
It's almost always omitted now.
Right.
Like all of the films, I don't think he's a scientist at all.
Not at all.
He's just a rich playboy billionaire that inherited everything, and that's it.
Right, totally.
We do know that he went off by himself to learn like martial arts and stuff like that, but this is always left out, him being a scientist.
Absolutely, you're right. Trains his body to physical perfection, which tracks with the rest of his origins. Then we see the famous scene of him sitting in his study. Dad's estate left me wealthy, and I'm ready, but at first I must have a disguise. Famous line, criminals are a superstitious, cowardly lot. So my disguise must be able to strike terror into their hearts. I must be a creature of the night, black, terrible, And he's thinking, and then, as if in answer, a huge bat flies in the open window, and we see that happen. And he looks up and says, "A bat, that's it. It's an omen. I shall become a bat." Then the last panel, and thus is born this weird figure of the dark, this avenger of evil, the Batman. And we see a very odd pose of him standing on like squatting. A rooftop. But I only discovered this recently, that this was swiped by Bob Kane from I believe it was a Tarzan story.
Oh, interesting.
So in the original context, the pose probably looked better, but in this context, strange. It looks very weird. We should point out that it was always kind of known that Bob Kane used ghost artists, but it's to the point where there were some DC editors that didn't even believe Bob Kane could draw anything. So for all we know, he didn't even draw this issue, but we're just going to assume it was Bob Kane for the sake of our review.
All right.
So Josh, that's only 2 pages, but what is your impression of this initial story?
It feels pretty on par with what I know of Batman's origin. I think the only thing maybe that stuck out as strange was how he got the idea. Was just like the bat flying in, which is it's fine, but it's like a little corny, I guess.
Sure.
But other than that, surprisingly one of the better origins of any of the heroes we really talk about on the show, and pretty solid for being this early on as well.
Right. Well,
giving this character that much development.
Objectively, like, just the basic story is, whew. If this isn't the best, it's one of the best superhero origins. I mean, just this 8-year-old that sees his parents gunned down in front of him. I mean, and that gives him the motivation to become a vigilante. Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. And I feel like too that this became kind of the basis to so many other superhero origins. Now it's like a cliche now that parents die,
right?
And then you become a superhero to avenge their death. Like, it's kind of like Superman is a little bit like that but like he grew up having a family, so it's not like his family growing up died and he had to avenge them. He never really knew his family, so it doesn't have that same like effect to it. It doesn't have that like vengeance feel. Yes. And that really is so much of every superhero, pretty much.
You know, you're right. It's like Spider-Man sees Uncle Ben, or afterwards he comes upon him after he's been gunned down.
But that's when he decides to become a superhero.
Yes, because up until then he was just a showboat. He was showboating with his powers. You're right. And then even in the Flash TV show, I don't want to spoil it for you in case you haven't seen it, the one from the 90s, they inserted a tragic origin where Barry Allen sees his older brother Jay Allen get murdered, and that gives him motivation to be the Flash. Yeah, so
I mean, even this new Flash movie that's coming out,
sure,
it's all about him messing up the timelines, trying to go back and save his parents who both died,
which was added in by a later writer decades later. Yes.
So yeah, it feels like I feel like you can name almost any superhero character and their parents or uncle or something has probably died, and that's kind of kickstarted their journey. So
right.
I don't know for sure if this is the first time ever. Maybe it's happened before, but being like a superhero and how prevalent Batman is even in today's society, I think that this definitely kind of kickstarted that that trope in superhero
100%,
stories.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Now, I mean, before we, just for the sake of you kind of knowing what I'm talking about here, I've actually just sent you the file for the original Batman costume. I hope you can see it. It's one of those weird
Oh, wow.
Yep. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Isn't that crazy? And then on top of that, I've also...
So where was this used? Or was this just like a drawing as like a concept?
Yeah, it was just a drawing that Bill Finger was like, okay, let's try something different. And he drew the costume that we all know and love.
That's so interesting because it almost... this is like jumping ahead to what we're going to be talking about later, but it almost feels like the Batman costume from the third issue.
Yes.
Like it kind of calls back to that a little bit. So that's pretty cool.
I believe it probably inspired that. You're right.
Yeah.
And then
interesting.
Yeah. And then this, I just sent you the Tarzan swipe from, I don't know if you can see that, but.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Now we should also point out Bill Finger does not get off completely scot-free because this the first story, The Case of the Chemical Syndicate, not this issue, but The Case of the Chemical Syndicate from Detective 27 was apparently ripped off of a Shadow story. So I'm
like the whole thing?
It was close enough. I haven't read it.
Wow.
I haven't read the original story, but I mean, I'm excited enough that I want to go back and read those Shadow stories.
That would be really...
It was clearly kind of being used as the basis for a lot of these things at the time. But anyway.
Wow.
Getting back to the story, I mean, it is only 2 pages. There's not a lot to say about it, but I think we agree it's a very powerful story. We've talked about the details that, again, over time get dropped and get changed, but the basic stuff is still here, and it's been done so many times that it's almost cliche, but I think it's a really powerful story, and yeah, like we said, it's one of the absolute best superhero origin stories. Like, it's really hard to top this.
Yeah.
So.
And as brief as it is, I feel like it's better than the next one we're going to be talking about because there's a change in it that is just so bizarre to me.
There's a few. Yeah, we're going to talk about those. Yeah. Okay, so you're going to summarize the next one? Okay.
Yeah, I'll go. This is Batman number 47. We're reading the Batman with Robin the Boy Wonder, the origin of Batman story. So we start off this issue with a like moving truck crashing off of a cliff, and Batman and Robin are there to help these people. The driver unfortunately passed away, but they hear somebody in the back. And they quickly rush to see what's going on, and a man pops out with a gun, and he bonks Robin on the head, who's very dizzy now. Batman tries to stop him and like grabs his wrist that's holding the gun, but Robin is so dizzy that he knocks Batman over, and it gives this guy a chance to shoot Batman. But luckily, there's some police officers that show up and shoot the guy before he can kill Batman. So they are kind of working together at this point. Batman and Robin go to the police station, and they reveal that the man who murdered Bruce Wayne's parents is back again. His name is Joe Chill.
Right.
He's taken over this moving company business, and he's using the big trucks to transport criminals across state borders, which is wild because I didn't think that there were like actual borders between all the states that they needed to like sneak across.
Yeah, I didn't either, but what do I know?
But whatever. And as Batman is looking at this picture of Joe Chill, he flashes back to the origin, to that day when his parents died. It kind of plays out the same. Him and his parents are walking down the alleyway. Joe Chill comes out and he shoots his father. And there's a little bubble here that says, that single bullet really killed 2 people. For Martha Wayne's weak heart stopped from the sudden shock.
Uh-huh.
So
that's
it's
the detail
very
that kills me. Yep.
It's very, she died of she lost the will to live. She,
right.
You know, it's kind of a shitty change. I'm not sure why they did that, but
and to be honest, I thought that up until today, I thought that was part of the original origin. So I'm glad to see that in the first version, it was both of them getting shot. Right.
Right. Yeah. So it's a little strange. Again, we kind of see Bruce Wayne deciding that he's going to avenge his parents. He's going to stop all criminals. This time he comes up with the idea while at the cemetery looking at his parents' tombstones. We see him again becoming a scientist. He becomes a gymnast, learns martial arts, and this it's redrawn, but it's very similar.
Right.
You get that same moment of him thinking and kind of thinking to himself, how is he gonna, adapt and like become this creature of vengeance? And the bat flies into the window and he gets the idea. And we get this same awkward pose.
Yep.
Of him on the rooftop. That's kind of fun.
Uh-huh.
And then we cut back to present day. He's done his flashback and he tells Robin, I've got to do this on my own now. This is kind of my origin and my story. So I'm going to do it on my own. So he decides to go to the warehouse dressed as Bruce Wayne, kind of like in a disguise, not in his Batman costume. And he tries to get a job with Joe Chill. And he's like, no, sorry, Punchy. I only hire guys I know. So then he comes up with a great idea where he's going to go onto a boat with one of Joe Chill's allies.
Yes.
What's his name? He had a wacky name, Julep, right? Chump. No. What's his name?
Julep. Yep, Julep.
It's something Julep, but he's not super important. Batman puts on his bat scuba gear with the bird decoy on the top as he's floating across the water.
I love it.
He boards this boat that's like this big illegal gambling casino, and he essentially is just there to kind of cause a ruckus and cause Julep to flee. And he's doing this so that way he can track that boat down to Joe Chill and kind of get a confession out of him.
Right.
And like kind of get this confrontation. So he goes to Joe Chill and he's like, listen, the Batman showed up and he kind of broke up the operations. I need you to put me in one of your trucks and ship me off to another state. That's when Joe Chill gets up and goes to the security and he sees that Batman is following them. So he kills Julep.
Uh-huh.
And unfortunately, Batman was not there to see this happen. And he says that, he kind of fakes the fact that he's like a criminal and he was just there to protect himself. So he Batman has like an idea that the way that he's going to get him to confess is to reveal his identity and kind of scare him and say, I've become who I am because of what you did to my parents, and I've come back for vengeance. And he takes off his mask, and he's like completely shocked. He punches him and then leaves, and then Joe Chill goes up to his goons and is like, listen, I killed Batman's parents, so he's after me now. And all of his goons are like, are you kidding me? You're the one who created the Batman. You caused us so much hell. And they all take out their guns in like a fit of rage and shoot him. So it's kind of ironic because... And then Batman shows up and punches the goons, and Joe Chill dies in his arms. So in a way, his the fact that he killed his Bruce Wayne's parents ended up being his undoing,
right? In
a weird kind of twisted way. So Batman didn't necessarily get revenge, the revenge that he wanted, but his parents, like he died, and his parents kind of got avenged,
right?
I guess in a silly way,
right?
So,
so
yeah, that's that one. Also, too, actually, I think in the last origin, they say something about it being in New York.
Did I miss that?
I think it was like an actual city. I'm almost positive.
Where do you see that?
Let me see.
In the 2-pager?
Yeah, I think it was that one that they talk about. Ooh.
I don't see it in here, and I just reread it as we were on the podcast, so I don't think it's this one. Oh, and the next page.
Oh, sorry, the next page
Manhattan.
he says he walks the streets of downtown Manhattan.
Yeah, that's the next page. Yeah.
So I'm assuming, I assumed that this, like, that's where Bruce Wayne was during his origin, and then Gotham came later. But
possible, yeah.
But this one for sure is in Gotham City.
Well,
so that might
funny
be a difference in the origin.
I'm just reading here, Gotham did not appear until Batman #4 in December 1940, so you're right. Mm-hmm. In these original stories, he was in New York. Interesting. Yeah. Huh. Cool.
So that's a small detail that changed along with his mom having a heart attack instead of being shot.
Right. So, let's just say this second story, this is still the Golden Age. It's 1948.
Yeah.
It's written by Bill Finger, drawn by Bob Kane, supposedly. So it's the same team. I do like the clever plotting. I appreciate the clever plotting. I don't necessarily like the fact that the criminals were so, aghast at what they found out about Joe Chill that they decided to kill him, and then realized, wait a minute, we didn't find out his secret identity. That's
ridiculous, but
hokey. However, I do appreciate the way that everything kind of works itself out. Mm-hmm. What else can I say about it? I don't know. I mean, I don't like. I definitely don't like the fact that Martha Wayne dies of a heart attack. I really don't like that. And there's another change I don't like. And in the original story, Bruce Wayne's reaction, as any normal humans would be, is complete shock and kind of helplessness. But in this story, and this was picked up in later versions, he's 8 years old and he's looking at Joe Chill. They're dead. You killed them. You killed my mother and father. And Joe Chill's like, stop looking at me like that. Something about young Bruce's eyes made the killer retreat. Like, come on. He's 8 years old, Like, he's not Batman yet.
Yeah, it's also strange, too, because, I don't know. Why would he get scared because of that? I don't know.
Because of a kid, right.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It would have been like he didn't want to kill a kid or something, and Bruce Wayne's, this panel could have worked still.
Right.
Because it could have been more of like the image of Joe Chill's face smiling was burned into his eyes or something, but it's...
Right.
Yeah, it's not as strong of like the flashback
Right.
So the actual origin itself is a little bit weaker, I think.
Right.
But the story, I think, is more satisfying. This Joe Chill one.
It's a real story.
Yeah. And it's kind of goofy. So like the goons being so angry that they forget to ask him who he was.
Right.
Like that's such a strange detail to add in because they didn't even need to do that.
You're right.
He could have just said, I'm the one who created the Batman. He's like, you're responsible. And they could have killed him. Like, he didn't have to be like, Batman just revealed to me his secret identity. Like, he didn't even have to say that. You know, the goons 100%. Could have just been so angry that he caused all of this commotion that they killed their boss or whatever. But
and you know, it's a trap that so many writers fall into where you kind of, you know, you see one of these details and you go, if you just cut out this and this, it would save this whole part, right? But you're right, yeah.
It's like an extra detail.
Yep.
That makes it feel out of place.
100%. So I know that we don't know for sure if this is Bob Kane, but let's just talk about this art. On one hand, I mean, the anatomy is not great. But I do appreciate the style, like, and there's other Batman artists that came later, like Dick Sprang, who's the best one. But I still have an appreciation for this art. Like, there's some great moments, like when you just flip through. Like, first of all, the splash page is great with Batman looking over Bruce Wayne's shoulder and like the Batmobile in the back and all that stuff. And just looking through, obviously it's very simple, it's very straightforward, but at least it's easy to follow. You know, and it's got a nice charm to it. You know, like the shadows on the bad guy's face when he gets shot, and the cops looking down the cliff there at Batman and Robin and all that stuff, and like the close up of the cop when he's talking to Batman. Like whoever drew this, that's not Bob Kane, is clearly skilled. You know,
right? Yeah, there's also like small details of just like shadows.
Yes.
Like throughout that are a really nice touch.
Right.
During the flashback of his origin, as he's like learning, like he's becoming a scientist, there's a Batman shadow cast on the wall behind him. It's great. Even later on, I can't remember the exact moment, but I think it's when he's in the offices, you can see like the like sharp points of Batman's cape.
Yes.
Like its shadow is also like on the wall. There's a lot of like small details that really work.
Yeah.
The anatomy is definitely off at times. And some of the faces are just so ridiculously awful. Like that specific one we were talking about earlier where it's like little kid Bruce Wayne's eyes in the foreground and then Joe Chill's face in the back. Right. What is that face? It's so weird. It's like a dummy, like a ventriloquist dummy.
I know.
And then his eyes have these like strange lines in it that almost make it look like a clock or something. Like it's so weird.
To me, it looks like his eyes are out of his head. That's how I took it. And those are holes. Unless I'm wrong.
Oh, I thought that.
You thought, but you're right. I think those are supposed to be Bruce Wayne's eyes,
right?
But to me, Joe Chill's eyes don't look so weird.
Right.
Right? It's hard to tell what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I appreciate them trying to be creative, though. You know, that's fine. And then if you flip through, I love the shot of those red transport trucks unloading all the stuff. Like that is a nice shot, nice perspective, and like the boats in the background. That's really cool. And like the fairies on the water with like the moon and the moonlight. Like again, whoever this ghost was knew what he was doing. I love Batman under the water with a pigeon on his head. That's so ridiculous. Creative. I love it. And then like bursting through and all the people gambling. Like that's classic Golden Age comic book art, and it's great. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, this is the thing: is I've been reading a lot of Bronze Age comics lately, and there's something about this that makes me more excited about reading Golden Age Batman stories than I would about reading even 70s and 80s Batman stories, you know? There's just something magical about it. I don't know what it is. I don't know how you feel about that, but are you excited at all about going back and reading more of these Golden Age Batman stories?
Yeah, it's... I really like the style of this, and
right.
it's also like it's so interesting to see how much it really looks like the Adam West Batman.
Yeah,
because I haven't read a whole lot of Golden Age Batman. I haven't really seen this, so like it's cool seeing now how faithful
yes.
That version was. And yeah, even for it being kind of like a corny old school comic, it still has its like darker, more serious moments. So I would definitely be down to read more stories like this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Bill Finger is a good writer, and the art does get better. But yeah, the style of this, the naivete, it's just there's something magical about it. And yeah, I definitely want to read more. And yeah, and with that, again, we should remind listeners, if this is your first episode, that each episode of Slam, we review a different DC superhero, and we usually contrast them from, say, the Golden Age, so the 30s or 40s, then to the 60s, then to the 80s. Batman and Superman are different because there's so many versions of their origins over the years. So we're doing more Superman and Batman than usual. There's definitely going to be a part 2 to Superman and a part 2 to Batman, just so you know.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is now we're going to jump ahead to Detective Comics 235. And so this is still this is where we get into again, if you're a hardcore comics fan, this is 1956. So it's just the beginning of the Silver Age, but it still looks like Golden Age art, so it's kind of in between. But according to DCFandom.com, this is the first Earth 1 appearance of Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne. So,
interesting.
And Joe Chill. Specifically Joe Chill. So this is the first Earth 1 origin of Batman. So this one's a lot different. This is one that they kind of forget about when they retell it. But basically, we start off with a splash page. Again, we should remind listeners that back in these days, the splash page was almost like another cover, right? It contained a scene from the story, but it wasn't part of the main story itself. So it's Batman explaining to Robin about a previous Batman who fought crime before he did. And like, look at the look on Robin's face. I just love it. The art. Yeah.
Looks like he's got like a mouthful of cereal or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, before you kind of go in and we talk about what happens in this one, this splash page doesn't make any sense, right?
Well, yeah, I know.
Right? Okay. I just want to make sure, because it's like he's explaining, like, look, Robin, this is this was actually the first ever Batman, even before me. And Robin's like, really? And then we cut over to Bruce Wayne finding out about that costume with Robin. So why would he be explaining to Robin?
Well, here's the thing. So the stories in those, like, as you know, the covers in those days were representations of the story. And so the covers definitely did not match up. And the splash pages were the same. The splash pages were not a real scene from the book. They were more like a summary of what happens. And like you just said, it doesn't actually make sense in the context of the story, right? It's kind of just a way to hook the reader in, I think. So you're right. You're right. It doesn't make sense at all. But oh well. Now, again, I love me some Golden Age Batman. The fact that Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson are just up in their attic looking through stuff is so freaking cool. Bruce, look, I must have touched a hidden spring in your father's old desk. So they find some kind of bat costume. And as we just said a minute ago, Bruce Wayne doesn't know about it. He said, Dick, I think I've seen this costume before on my father long, long ago. And so he flashes back to when he was a kid, and he's vowing, he's looking up at the painting of his parents, or the drawing, or the picture, and he's like, I vow that I'll dedicate my life to bring your killer to justice and to fight all crime. They show him training, just like the other versions. They show him sitting by the window. It's a bat. It's flown in the window. It's like an omen. I shall become a Batman. Then we see a slight change to the origin. Now Joe Chill has become Joey Chill, right? A little bit more. He's a cute version of Joe Chill. So
right.
It's the man. So Batman is up on like a ledge, looking down. It's the man who killed my parents. He's older now, but I can never forget that face. So then, but ironically, Joey Chill was shot down by other mobsters who had a grudge against him. So obviously, this is a big change from the previous version, right? That other 1948 version's been been completely discarded. So now Joe Chill's dead, which we could talk about this later, but I like Batman being involved with his fate a little bit more. But whatever, we'll talk about that later. So then Bruce Wayne is still talking to Dick Grayson. He's like, look, there's something else in the drawer, a can of movie film and a diary. And then they play a film of a masquerade called Flying Creatures, and we see Dr. Thomas Wayne dressed up as Batman. And we should tell the listeners here, this Batman costume is gray with... You could. Is it gray?
I'm pretty sure it's not gray. It's just... He just has underwear and a belt on.
Okay.
And a mask and a cape. Because the film is in black and white, but when we get to the next page, we see Thomas Wayne in the costume in full color, and it is his skin tone. So from what I get, it's just underwear. It's just underwear.
Wait.
A mask and a cape.
But if you go to the cover, his costume is gray on the cover. It's just like
that's true on the cover. It is,
but I know what you mean. I think it's just that the coloring is so poor. It's hard to differentiate between the skin tone and the gray of his costume. But I do think that's supposed to be.
They don't have that problem with Batman.
Yeah, you're right. But maybe this is supposed to be a different shade of gray. But let's just, for the sake of our sanity, let's just say that it's gray, okay? And he's not just running around just in his underwear. Okay. So anyway, and so it's very similar to the real Batman's, except instead of a cape, he has wings, just like Bob Kane's original design, right? And instead of like Batman ears, he has more of a almost Wolverine type mask, right? Mm-hmm. So it's different.
Very like masquerade kind of looking.
Right. So anyway, so then we see, and of course a character who doesn't get any screen time is Martha. Martha Wayne's also there. And I didn't even notice her when I first read the story, but she's dressed as almost like a gypsy moth or something. I don't know.
Yeah, something, yeah.
Right. And Bruce Wayne's like, gee, Daddy, I wish I could wear a suit like that. Foreshadowing, right? And then, of course, Bruce Wayne's like, Dick, when that bat flew into my room, it must have prodded my subconscious memory of my father's costume. Now I realize I adopted a Batman costume because I remembered my father wearing one. So then we cut over and... we now come upon the plot of Matt Reeves' The Batman movie, and we find out that Thomas Wayne is forced or hired to help out a mobster named Lou Moxon, a bank robber. And he's being forced at gunpoint to help this guy to remove a bullet. Pardon me. And then, but Thomas Wayne realizes that he's got to do something because he thinks, I can't help this guy. So then he knocks over a chair, punches out the guys, and then basically, beats them up. Mm-hmm. And then Dick Grayson's like, wow, even though he didn't have any training in fighting crooks, your father pulled a typical Batman stunt. And then Bruce Wayne, my father was quite a guy. And then Moxon goes to trial, and he swears that he'll get him. So now again, you saw the Matt Reeves' The Batman movie, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like this is.
It's pretty similar, yeah.
It's pretty similar. Now this story, I'm not sure if it was reused by someone later on, like Jeff Loeb or somebody, because I didn't read The Long Halloween or whatever that was used in. But so this is where it comes from. So basically, this gangster Moxon, he tracks down. Sorry, I'm losing the plot here. So who's he talking to here?
Sorry.
That's Thomas Wayne. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry. So Thomas Wayne comes across Moxon, and he's like, yeah, I served my 10 years in jail where you put me. I swear I'd get you, and I will. But I'm too smart to do it myself. Now, I should point out something.
Uh-huh.
This doesn't make any sense.
He's essentially saying, I'm not going to kill you myself. I'm going to find a different way to do it.
Yeah.
So this is where it's revealed that Moxon was the one who hired Joe Chill to kill Thomas Wayne. And it wasn't actually just a circumstance where he was robbed.
Right.
This was like a hit brought out on his
But I have
parents.
to point out why it doesn't make sense. Because how old is Bruce Wayne then when Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne get killed? If he's a little kid here... Mm-hmm. And 10 years have gone by. how old was he when he first saw Thomas Wayne's costume? I mean, maybe he's like 5. No, because then he'd be 15. He's way too old. So that's kind of a plot hole.
Oh, do they say it's 10 years?
Yeah, because right here, Joe Chill says, I served my 10 years in jail where you put me. So that means Bruce Wayne
so then he would have been 15.
Yeah, at the youngest.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it doesn't add up. But let's just ignore that detail.
Interesting.
So this is what's interesting, is then Joey Chill says, he's telling Thomas Wayne, I swear to get you and I will, but I'm too smart to do it myself. The police would arrest me on suspicion. I'll get someone else to do it. Then Bruce Wayne in the present goes, that means Joey Chill only pretended to be a hold-up man. Actually, he was Moxon's hired killer. Now, this is a detail that was alluded to in the Batman. I personally, we can talk about this more later. I do not like this detail at all, but we'll get to that later. So then Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson decide they're going to reopen the Wayne murder case. They're going to go investigate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they go to Boss Moxon's headquarters, where he's got
like a blimp organization with the sky high advertising, which is actually a pretty fun callback to the first origin.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
That story is about a bunch of like mobsters who have a blimp that are like destroying the town. Right.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I love this, but in the darkness, Robin's foot kicks a misplaced gasoline can. So of course he's a jackass, Robin.
It's so ridiculous, like that. This just comes out of nowhere.
Right.
It's so funny too because we don't even see them in the warehouse. They're just like, "Look at this is the warehouse," and then fucking Robin ruins it. It's so funny.
I know. I love it. We got the brat. Batman will be easier to take now. Oh, and Robin gets knocked out by like a swinging sandbag. I don't know how that comes out of there, but anyway.
Right.
So then Batman is brought down, but not for long. He beats them all up, and then now they're back in court, and he's like, "Lou Moxon, I'm charging you with the murder of Dr. Thomas Wayne," and Moxon's like, "Is that what you're after me for? I never heard of any Dr. Wayne. I'm even willing to take the lie detector test to prove it." So then he takes the lie detector test, and he doesn't remember anything. So then they find out.
He says he doesn't kill them, and it comes back that he's telling the truth.
Right. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then later on, Commissioner Gordon reveals that Moxon had a head injury. So then Batman's like, that head injury gave Moxon amnesia, loss of memory. He doesn't remember my father or anything that happened.
Oh my God.
Golly, what do we do? So then they decide, keep after Moxon. He must be involved in something shady. Otherwise, his men wouldn't have jumped us. Tonight, we're going to trail his blimp. So then we see this awesome scene of him flying over Gotham, trailing the blimp. And then, getting out of the bat. What is it called? The Batwing or the Batplane? It's called the Batplane.
I think it's called the Batplane right now.
We see him climbing out of the Batplane and dropping down on the bad guys, and and Batman swinging into the into what is it called, into the gondola, which is like the little
the bottom of the blimp part.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they fly over to go and get Moxon, and then Batman has an idea. Robin says, "Say, how about wearing your?" It was Robin's idea. "Say, how about wearing your father's costume?" And Batman says, "Yes, it would be appropriate. It'd be almost as if Dad were arresting Moxon." So then Batman bursts in wearing the old Batman costume, and Moxon says, "Who? That costume? I've seen it before. Long ago. I'm beginning to remember a doctor, Doc Wayne. He wore that costume." And then Batman in his head, "Great Scott! I didn't realize the shock of seeing this costume would jar Moxon's memory. Go away, you're dead. I had Joey Chill kill you. Leave me alone." Then he runs away, runs outside, and gets run down by a truck and killed.
The end.
The end. And then Batman's like, "I wanted to take him alive to stand trial for his crimes, but his own guilt convicted him." And in the last panel, we see, soon after, a costume occupies an honored space in the Batcave's trophy room. And then it has a little sign, "From the Wayne murder case. Case finally solved by this costume once worn by the first Batman," with a hyphen.
So stupid.
The end.
It started out, I think, pretty great. I liked the fact that it's like, it's kind of tied into like a bigger mob thing, and him going and finding the mob, the guy that like put a hit on his father. That's so interesting. And then even like bringing him to court and him getting away with it is fantastic. And then the second Commissioner Gordon gets on the phone and he's like, yeah, he bonked his head, and he forgets.
Right.
He completely forgot about that. It's like, what? Wait, huh? Are you for real? And then him getting so scared by the old costume that he runs into traffic and dies is insane. Like the old costume and Batman's costume are so similar to each other.
Right.
It's almost the same thing. Why was he not already scared of Bat? Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Great point. Actually,
it's so strange.
Now that you mention it, wouldn't it have been smarter to just have Thomas Wayne wear the red Batman costume to Bob Kane? Like, just make it completely different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been better. Here's the thing, is like, I love the Golden Age. I love the Silver Age. Silver Age Superman stories are great. They're glorious. Everyone else, it doesn't quite work as well. And I feel like, even though I really love these Silver Age Batman stories from the 50s, he was better, I think, in the early days. Like, if you go back and read the original stories, the first year of Batman before Robin shows up is awesome, and then as soon as Robin shows up, it gets a little bit silly, right?
Right.
And every time they introduce a new element, it gets sillier and sillier and sillier. And this story is enjoyable, but I think that the 1948 one is better. What do you think?
For sure. It's a little ridiculous. Robin even being here feels strange and out of place.
Yeah.
Like, it's not really sure why. Like, does he need to be in every Batman?
No.
I guess it's called Batman and Robin, the comic, but I don't know. He kind of feels like he's just there. So that way, when kids read it, they've got somebody to look up to, right? Like, they can see themselves in the comic. But he really doesn't have much of a place in the story. It would have worked better if Robin was not the one to find the old Bat costume in the attic, and it was just Bruce Wayne.
Sure.
And Batman could just be retelling this story to Robin.
Right.
So like, this whole issue essentially is Bruce Wayne recalling what happened and telling it to Robin. So the splash page is him being like, look, this is the first thing. And then he goes and describes, I was in my attic one day and I found this costume, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, when we get this moment of like, he died because he ran into traffic or whatever. And then we flash to the old costume, the original costume in the case. We could have cut back to Robin, kind of like ending the story.
Yeah.
But instead, we just have him getting hit by a car. The next panel is Batman looking at him dead after being squished by a car. And then it's like this jarring cut back over to the Batcave where the costume is in like a case. And we have this like, we have to have like this strange plaque too there that explains it to cap it off. That it's like nobody would ever make a plaque that says this. It just says that to like let the readers, like, to finish the story off for the readers.
Right.
So it's just, it would have been better as just a bubble.
Right.
Instead of it being, you know, I don't know. Or again, Bruce Wayne telling the story to Robin. He could say something or kind of remark about how he felt or something. It's just so strange. Such a weird, abrupt ending. Did we even really need them going to the blimp?
No, but it was a very cool scene.
It was cool.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You're right.
But it's like they go there and they punch a bunch of guys, and then they end up just going back to Joe Chill's place in the new costume. Like, it's just... it's definitely more messy than the other two. It was I still had a fun time reading it, but it just wasn't a great story, and definitely the last issue tells this story a lot better.
Yes. Yes. Well, yeah. Basically, this happened a lot in the Silver Age, where you'll find out that Jor-El and Lara came to Earth before Superman did, or you'll find out, you know what I mean? Like, just stupid.
Right. It's ridiculous. Like, why are we doing this?
Again, I can appreciate it and enjoy it on a certain level, but for the sake of the character, these are not good ideas to just keep adding on and retconning and so it's an unnecessary detail. I mean, okay, fine. Maybe you see a picture of Thomas Wayne at a masquerade and he's wearing the red Batman costume. That's kind of cool. But to go this far...
It's definitely more subtle, too.
Right.
Of a way to be like, it's kind of in the family to like bats and to stand up to criminals and stuff. Like, that's an interesting idea. But, I'm not sure.
Let's talk about the art. So, it's probably the same artist, but he's finally credited. This is Sheldon Moldoff. Who basically, I'm going to guess that he also drew number...
40?
Yeah, number
40.
48 or whatever, 47, whatever it was. But maybe he didn't, but who knows. But yeah, I mean, again, this is the same thing, the same style. It almost looks like the characters are made out of paper, and they're just, like, their hands fold like little paper puppets, right? Like, they have no gravity or weight to them. That's fine. I mean, some of the faces are really cool. It's the same style as the other one.
I think some of the figures and the faces look better in this one as well.
Okay.
It does feel a little bit more flat than the other one, but I think that he found his other button. I think that the art, I like the art in this one better though. It has also like more of like a cartoon, maybe that flatness and like the more solid color backgrounds makes it feel like a poppy, cartoony, like
right
pop art, where the other one felt a tad bit more grounded and kind of had some like grittiness to it, and it felt a little bit more real world. This one feels more like a comic book, like a cartoon,
yes,
and the story
100%.
Definitely reflects that as well.
Yes, 100%.
But the art's fine in this one too.
Yeah, it's fun. It's got that classic style. Now, I should point out that in '64, Batman was revamped by Carmine Infantino on art, and the writing. I can't remember who the writer was. Gardner Fox, I believe. But completely different style. But I want to point out that while I love this Batman art, try to imagine it being out at the same time as Kurt Swan on Superman or Gil Kane on Green Lantern or Carmine Infantino on Flash. Comparatively, this looks much more out of date, more retro compared to those
for
comics.
Sure.
So he definitely needed a change, and that came in 1964 when he got the yellow circle and the new kind of look. But anyway, so again, this was a fun story, but very reflective of what was going on in the 1950s, which was, it was a simpler time, it was more sanitized time, and it was a fun story, but a lot of these details were completely unnecessary and didn't really add to the origin of Batman. And obviously, over the years when they redo the origin of Batman, this is a detail they definitely leave out. Thomas Wayne being another Batman before Bruce Wayne was.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous.
Yeah, but I'm still excited to go back and maybe read some more of these stories because I think they're a lot of fun.
I've got a question for you actually.
Sure.
How do you feel about the kind of reimagining of how he thought of the idea to be bat themed? Because I think that's a really neat idea. I don't think necessarily Nolan was the one who rewrote that, but it's definitely kind of a big story beat in Batman Begins where he's like afraid of bats when he falls down
that's brilliant,
down the well, and then even at the play there's these like ballet dancers that resemble bats, and he gets scared, and that's the reason why they leave the play early, kind of like causing he blames himself now because of his fear of the bat to leave, and then he chooses to like use that as a symbol to kind of reclaim that. I think that's brilliant and kind of a great way to reimagine this story, this origin, but still keeping it the same.
It is brilliant, and I believe that was David Goyer's idea because he wrote the screenplay. So we should probably credit him, but yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea, and I mean, I believe in most versions of Batman's origin, the movie that they're seeing is Zorro.
I believe,
which is fine, but the Bat theme play and the use of Batman Begins is even better, I think, right?
Yeah.
And the fear of bats, getting over the fear of bats is just brilliant. I mean, you could incorporate both. Like, you could have Bruce Wayne falling down, being scared of bats, seeing the bat play, and then later, maybe he can't figure out what to disguise himself out as, and then he sees a bat fly through the window, and it kind of reminds him. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they could all work. But yeah, I agree. The David Goyer addition is definitely a brilliant idea. I love it.
Yeah.
So like we said, we are going to be doing more Batman Origins soon. But that's it for this episode. I think we're both excited to read more Golden and Silver Age Batman stories.
Sure
right?
am. Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason he was so popular. I mean, he wasn't as popular as Superman, but he was one of the more popular superheroes, and he's got such a rich history. I mean, I went through Bat Backlash in the 90s, but I think it was my reappreciation for the old stuff, like the Adam West stuff and the Golden Age stories, that made me love Batman again, you know? Because, Batman is super popular, but, you know, it's almost like there was a point where Batman was like the Deadpool of the 90s, where everyone loved him so much because he was so tough and no one could take him. And, you know, I got really sick of him. But anyway, I love him now. I love him again. So anyway, next week on this show, we are going to be reviewing... Oh, you know what? It's a surprise because I haven't clicked on it yet, but I'm going to reveal what it is. Next week, we're going to be talking about The Flash.
Ooh,
and we're going to be having a surprise guest. I don't want to say who it is in case he cancels, but yes, we'll be talking about the Golden Age Flash, the Silver Age Flash, and the 1980s Flash. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And then don't forget to also watch or listen to Taped Crusaders. On next week's episode, we'll be reviewing the Amazing Spider-Man pilot episode with our friends Champ Ian and Cousin Brandon.
Oh,
it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. And Josh, you can take it from here.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. You can find all of our stuff over on our website at thecomicbooksyndicate.com. You can find all of our podcasts there, YouTube videos. Sometimes we do live streams when like big announcements happen, when me and Mike have some free time. We'll kind of just pop on randomly, short notice. But you can also find all of our stuff on YouTube or all of our podcasts wherever podcasts are, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, all that good stuff. Please keep in touch. Let us know what you guys think about the podcast and the comics we're talking about. Let's keep that comics conversation going.
That's right. So until the next episode, see you.